that's cool about this focus on process. Once you do that, all these big walls that are between these different traditions, these little schools and etc., they come down.
Yeah.
And then, well, why not? I mean, why not draw from these different things? And that is something I think the third wave contributed. I think we had to focus on these issues of philosophy of science. We had to focus on process. And it wasn't in combination with bringing things like acceptance and mindfulness and values and some of these things from our wisdom traditions and, the things from meditation and yoga and all these kind of fruit nut seed mix of things that are out there. Turns out some of those things, even though they weren't randomized controlled trial kind of evidence-based care models, they had some ideas about processes that were important. The humanistic traditions, has acceptance in there. It has a values focus in there. It didn't have the science to really link it up. And so what's happened, I think, if you look back, which is what that little piece in World Psychiatry is, and then look forward, which is the text that we're doing, I think you can see that the third wave kind of opened up this process-based focus in such a way that it's now open to basically any evidence-based process from any tradition, whether it's analytic, existential, humanistic, it doesn't matter. And we can play together with different words for the same things. Let's face it, people are going to call the same thing different ways. Okay, that's fine. And with different models, when you collect them, and that's important, we'll work that out. But without this kind of not invented here kind of problem, they made it hard for practitioners to use things that were useful, but that had not been, gone through the right vetting in terms of the particular school or tradition.
And in a way, we are inviting more or less everybody in there, in our tent, as long as you can tell us what you think, what the process is, and do you have evidence to support the process. So not any strategy that seems to work, but for no good reason, or just for some reason that we can't really quantify. Well, this is not enough. We really need to understand the mechanism, the process, and that advances theory. That advances then further development of psychological therapies later on.
Well, and I think one of the things that science can do is it has a way of eliminating things that are unnecessary kind of hangers-on. So if you take something like Buddhism, let's say, I don't like the folks who are saying Buddhism is a science. No, it isn't. It is not. Yes, it's empirical, but so is baking bread. It doesn't make bakers scientists. But with respect, we look carefully at what wisdom traditions, including Buddhism, but also all the others, all the other major wisdom traditions, religious traditions have the same kind of quality. But then some of these concepts, turns out, will work as scientific processes when they're reformulated and tested, and some of them won't. And so we can treat this human complexity and what we know about it with respect, but with no genuflection. We still have our role to play as Western scientists, but allowing the data to do the wheat from the chaff kind of filtering, rather than our particular analytic biases or theoretical presuppositions. Let's let the data decide. And if you want to play and you can show that your processes, for example, mediate important outcomes, you're in.
Yeah. So this is sort of the commonality. This is the common thread that we want to, the basis that we want people to work with is process. What are the process? And there are different levels. I mean, we haven't gotten to that level of depth. There might be biological more in nature, more psychological in nature, more behavioral in nature. But let's open it up to those kind of discussions. I think this is the beginning of a longer process that will evolve. So this is not our book or our thinking is not the end state at all. This will be sort of initial first steps toward a ever evolving scientific discipline of psychological science, really, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the book on process-based CBT is a very important step forward, but I think listeners and viewers should know that we have a whole series of projects to sort of build out this vision of process-based CBT and process-based evidence-based care more generally. So we held a conference in Boston where we brought a number of really world-class experts together to look at the issue of how are we going to go to issues of diagnosis and case formulation and functional analysis, these really important things. It's actually something that's not in our textbook on PB-CBT because we thought it would just expand it too much to get into the assessment and diagnosis side of it. And so we had a problem focus, but we didn't go much beyond that. But we knew that other shoe had to hit the ground, and we're now going through the process of producing an edited volume. Exactly what we'll title it, I don't know, but we have a world-class list of authors there. I wonder if you have some thoughts about the Boston conference and just what you see as went on there that was of importance. That might...
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think, as you said, I think once we start considering the problem, so rather than approaching it as a medical disease model, but and once we step away from it, not to say that there's no latent disease, there may or may not be, but let's assume that some problems are not expressions of a latent disease, and once we step away from it and kind of think about processes that are involved in treatment, a number of questions come up quite naturally, and a very natural question is, well, how else could we, what could we use to classify people if we don't have these arbitrary diagnostic categories formed by the DSM? By the way, we had people who also presented this point of view. Then we considered other viewpoints. One was represented by NIMH, who a representative came who presented on RDoC, the research domain criteria, which was for a while a very prominent system that is now sort of a bit falling out of favor. We had a number of folks looking at from behavioral points of views, from a biological point of view. So a number of, so I think we have to, once you open it up, then I guess the tough question, these are tough, difficult answers to these questions. What can we use to group people more meaningfully? But I think this book will not so much give a solution, but lays out sort of the problem space from which we can then elaborate and explore possible answers, I guess.